Hello and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I have my January wrap up. This month I read 12 books. I did DNF one of them, but I'm still counting it. So let's just get right into the books. So the very first book that I picked up this year was Fair Catch by Kandi Steiner. I have heard so many good things about this series. I honestly didn't really know much going into it other than that it was a football college romance. This one follows Zeke and Riley. This is a brother's best friend book, and it's actually her twin brother who gets injured when I think they're like 16 and ends up being paralyzed, and he can't play on the football team anymore, so he makes her promise that she is going to take his place. And she does. This book mostly takes place when they are in college, and she's now on the college football team, and she's the only girl, obviously, and she ends up having to play on the same team as her brother's best friend and also be roommates with him, but she cannot stand him, absolutely hates him. I really loved this book. I gave it 4 stars, but like honestly, the more I think about it, it's probably more like a 4.5. This was just like so different, I think, than anything I've ever read. I've never really read like one where the girl was on the team too, and so I thought that was kind of interesting. I really liked the atmosphere. There was a lot of football in this. I know I say this sometimes. I know nothing about football, so sometimes when there's like long drawn out chapters about football games and like the moves they're making, I just like all goes right over my head. Like I have no idea what they're talking about. And I did have a little of that with this book because they're both on the team. You get a lot of that. Like I literally didn't even know that football teams have like a designated person to kick. Like I just literally, I don't know anything about football. I've never watched football. It's all over my head. So I tried my best to like understand what was going on in that regard, and like it wasn't terrible. I've definitely read other books where there was like a ton of football and I was just getting bored. This one I felt like had a good balance between like the football and the romance. Really enjoyed it. Like I said, probably would give it 4.5 stars if I was rating it right now. Then I also read Blindside by Kandi Steiner. This is the second book in that same series. This was the one I was really excited about because I've seen people hype this one up so much. This is a fake dating romance between Clay and Gianna. Gianna is like the PR girl for the team, and Clay is a player on the team. He's just gotten dumped by his girlfriend that he thought he was going to marry. And so they sort of devise this plan where they are going to fake date so that she can get the attention of this musician that she really likes, and he can get the attention of his ex, who he thinks just kind of wants to see him moving on, and then she'll decide she wants him back. So they decide to fake date to sort of put that together. This one I honestly was a little bit disappointed in, but it may have been me like 100%, because I was just like, it was taking me so long to get through this. I don't know, it took me like a week just to get through the first 30 pages, and that never happens to me. I don't know, something about this just wasn't, like I wasn't dying to continually pick this up. And so I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. I will probably revisit this at some point and see if I change my mind about that, because I do think like this had such a good setup for me. Like I loved The Deal by Elle Kennedy, and I was sort of expecting a football version of that. I don't know, the thing that bothered me in this one in particular was that I found when they started like hooking up and kissing and whatever, and like the physical side of their relationship, I felt like it never seemed fake, which like obviously it wasn't because they're falling for each other, but it just never, right from the beginning, seemed like they were faking it just because that's what they were doing. And because of that, it felt a little insta-lovey to me almost, where like they were instantly like, oh my gosh, I have to have the other one. And I didn't love that, but maybe, I don't know, maybe that's just like because it took me so long to read it that that's how it felt. But like, I don't know. I do think I will revisit this at some point. I am going to read the third book because I love a coach's daughter romance, and that's what that one is. So I am excited for that one, and I will read like the fourth one. Like this, I think, was just probably like the wrong time for me to pick up this book, and that's why I didn't end up loving it, which was pretty sad because I was really excited for this one, like I said. Next, I read Goodbye Paradise. This one follows Caleb and Josh, who both grow up in a cult, and there's sort of this like issue within the cult because they are all polygamists basically, so all of the men are taking on like 4 wives, and so they're ending up with this problem in the cult where they're ending up with all these extra guys that are just like single and can't have a wife because one guy has 4 wives, and it's just the math doesn't add up, you know? And so a lot of the single guys are left to do like the farm work and things like that. But they start to kind of notice that, you know, the guys that aren't as strong or aren't as good at the farming work just seem to sort of disappear, and they say that they like ran away. And they like kind of are piecing together the pattern that it's like always the weakest link basically that is disappearing and that they're saying has run away. And they sort of believe that Josh is on that chopping block, that he is going to be You know, he's not super good at the farm work. Caleb is always kind of helping him secretly so that he doesn't like get in trouble or anything like that. But the two of them have always been just like best friends. And Caleb devises this plan that they are going to run away. Caleb is the son or grandson of someone who's like very high up in the cult, so he sort of gets more privileges than Josh does. And so he comes up with this plan that they're going to run away together. And Josh kind of has had like these feelings for Caleb that he's never said anything about because like he knows that it would be a problem if he did within this cult. And so he never says anything. He doesn't think Caleb feels the same way. He just thinks that they are really good friends. And so they end up running away together, and this book follows that story. This was really interesting, actually. I gave this 4 stars, I'm pretty sure. I just thought this was so different than anything I've ever read. I've never read anything with a cult, I'm pretty sure, other than like a thriller, which obviously is a little bit different than this. And I just thought it was really interesting because, like I said, it was something so unique and different. I love Sarina Bowen's books to begin with, so this one was really interesting. Next, I read Hello Forever by Sarina Bowen, which is the second book in that series. I thought this was going to follow the same couple, but it does not. This one follows Axel and Cax, and the two of them are sort of friends when they're kids. They go to summer camp together. It's like a church camp. And they're caught making out in the woods one day, and Cax disappears, and Axel just doesn't see him again. And then it is 6 years later when this book takes place, and Axel has just been offered a job at this university, and he's watching one of their basketball games on TV, and he sees Cax sitting in the audience of this game, and he sort of pieces together that he's probably like going to this school or living in the area or something. And so on a whim, he decides, okay, I'm going to take this job and I'm going to move there, and maybe I'll bump into him. And it sort of goes from there. This one is kind of connected to the first one, but not really. Like, if you didn't read the first one, it wouldn't matter. This one I gave 3 stars to. I felt like this one was kind of rushed. It was really, really short. And, like, by the time you were, like, getting into it, it was over. It was just sort of too quick for me. It was an okay read. I'm going to be really honest here. I used to keep a book journal of sorts. It was literally just a composition book that I wrote a half-page summary for every book I read in. And I kind of stopped doing that in early December because I just got tired of it. I found I was putting off picking up the next book because I had to write this thing, and then I just like was not reading because I felt like I had to write these things and I didn't want to. So I just stopped writing them and just decided to read whatever and go for it. But that has kind of come back to haunt me now because there are a couple of books on this list that I read this month, but I genuinely like don't remember them, which is terrible. But I just feel like I read so many books that if they're not memorable, they don't stick with me for very long. So this next one, unfortunately, is one of them. So I can't tell you a ton about it because I genuinely only remember one scene from it. But this is Southern Storms by Brittainy C. Cherry. This is the first book in, I think it's called the Compass series. I may be totally wrong on that. But I think the 4th book in the series just came out, which is why I picked this one up. This one follows Jax and Kennedy has just moved to this small town trying to, I guess, just like get away. She is staying in a friend's house. Her friends are like house flippers, I think, and they just have this house that they're not currently working on. And so she is staying there temporarily, and this guy is like her grumpy neighbor, and they end up realizing that they were best friends when they were kids. But, like, honestly, I don't know. Like I said, I don't really remember anything about this. I gave it 3 stars. I remember thinking it was okay. I think I just read too many small town romances, honestly, that were not very distinct this month, and that's why I'm getting them all mixed together. But this one was okay. I remember that. Like I said, small town, grumpy neighbor. That's literally all I remember, so I'm sorry. Next is the book I DNF'd, which is Sugar Daddies by Jade West. This one follows Carl, Rick, and Katie. I just thought this book was so boring. I was not expecting a ton of plot going into this, but I can tell you, like, there is actually a lot of plot in this book, but it's just really boring. I don't know. The girl, Katie, she wants to buy, like, a horse school, I guess, where she can teach, like, horse riding lessons kind of thing, and she doesn't have the money, so she joins this, like, sugar daddy website and meets Carl and Rick. And so she like applies or whatever, and they end up agreeing that they're gonna like start an arrangement. And they do that. She's saving all the money to, you know, buy her horse school and whatever. And I just found like there was so much information about this girl's horse barn or school or whatever, and I just didn't care about any of that. And it was just like there was this big like secret in this book that was supposed to be like, it says on the back of the book that there's something that these guys like want or do or whatever that is scaring all the other girls away, like before Katie, that they've all kind of ran when they told them that this was what they wanted. And I feel like it was really obvious like what that was. And I think even me just saying what I just said, which is literally on the back of the book, I think it's obvious what they wanted. And I was reading the book. I DNF'd at the 56% mark because I just felt like it was playing out exactly like I thought it was going to be. I did actually un-DNF this because it was kind of gnawing at me that I was like, okay, what if I'm wrong and this like secret isn't what I think it is, and I just like DNF'd a book because I thought it was too predictable and it wasn't really. So I did pick it back up again. I think I got to the 64 or 67% mark when I officially DNF'd, because by then I had found out the secret and it was exactly what I thought it was going to be, and I just felt no need to continue reading on with the book. I don't know, it was very straightforward, very basic. Even in the writing, I didn't love that. Wasn't my favorite thing of all time. Like I said, I really didn't have super high hopes going into this one, so to actually like DNF it was kind of a surprise because I went in with low expectations, but just didn't love this one. Wasn't for me. Next, I read In the Weeds by B.K. Borison. This is the second book in, is it called the Love Light Farm series? I'm not sure what it's called, but this is the second book in the series. And this one follows Beckett and Evie, or Evie. I'm going to call her Evie because I like that better. But the two of them, sort of, you see them at the end of the first book, Love Light Farms, and now we're getting their full story. So they had a one-night stand a long time ago, thinking that they were never going to see each other, and then Evie ends up showing back up, and they're kind of like, whoa, we weren't going to see each other again, kind of thing. And she is a social media influencer. He is like a farmer, so like completely opposite worlds kind of thing. And she ends up kind of getting into like this crisis mode where she's like, I don't want to do social media anymore. I'm not happy. Like, I want to go to the last place I was happy. And she ends up back in this small town with Beckett, and things kind of go from there. This was like a cute, like, small town read. I didn't find that there was anything particularly memorable about this one. I did give it 4 stars because I did enjoy it while I was reading it, but I don't think it's something that I would ever revisit. But it was like a decent small town romance if you're looking for that. Then I read Mixed Signals by B.K. Borison, which is the third book in that same series. This one was actually my favorite, which is kind of funny because I feel like this one gets the worst reviews out of all of them. But this one I think was the most memorable. It was actually funny. Like, I was laughing reading this book, and it takes a lot for me to do that. I feel like there are so many books that are labeled rom-coms that just don't even have anything funny in them, which is so strange to me. But this one was actually funny. This one follows Layla and Caleb. You do see them again in the previous book. You sort of see him kind of obviously like crushing on her, but like she's not picking up on it. He keeps going to her bakery to buy cakes, even though he really doesn't need cakes. And he just keeps going and buying them just to like see her. And she's not picking up that that's what he's doing. She just kind of thinks he needs a lot of cakes. She has kind of had really terrible luck with dating in the past. She has dates that like steal the cutlery from the restaurant and like are just like super weird dudes. Like, she picks like the weirdest guys, and she never knows it like when she's going out with them, obviously, but she always gets home and she's like, that was the worst date ever. And this book starts out with her on one of those dates where she just says, you know what, like, I'm done, I'm gonna go pay the bill and I'm gonna leave, like, we're done. And when she does, she bumps into Caleb when she goes to pay the bill, and he's there celebrating a family member's birthday, and he sort of, they get talking, and they sort of make a deal that they're gonna fake date, but not fake date in the way that I feel like most books fake date, because they're actually dating so that she can see sort of what it's like to actually go on a good date. And he sort of has issues where girls always tell him he's too much, and he wants to figure out like what that means. He's like, what am I doing wrong? So he's like, I'll take you out on dates. You can tell me when I'm being too much, and like I can show you like what going on a good date is like. And so that's sort of how it starts. And I just like really loved this one for whatever reason. I found it was like more relatable than the other two, and like I said, it was really funny, which I really liked, because like I said, it is hard to find books like that. But I just really, really enjoyed this one. I thought it was really cute. Like I said, I know a lot of people don't like this one, but I don't know why, because I really loved it. Now this next one is one that I like really don't remember. It is Wildcard by Karina Halle. I like read the synopsis for this to try and give you guys like some kind of explanation for what this book is about. But honestly, like, it says their names are Shane and Rachel, and I'm like really wondering if I even read this book, but like I literally put it on Goodreads that I read it, so I'm sure I did, but I don't remember a Shane and Rachel. And so it's like, I really feel like I didn't read this book, but I know I did. I don't remember what happens. It's a small town. Again, I think that's where I'm getting mixed up, is these books are just all similar, like small town kind of books. And this one, all I know is he like did something that made her leave or break up with him, and now one of them's back and they're both in this small town. That's literally all I could gather from the like synopsis of the book. It obviously wasn't very memorable because I literally read it this month and I already can't tell you what it was about. I gave this 3 stars, probably was worth 3 stars. There are some books that I read and I'm like, they're good at the time, like for what it was, like 3 stars to me is like, okay, I wasn't bored at any point and I wasn't like on the edge of my seat dying to know what was going to happen either. It was just kind of an okay book. It like filled the time kind of thing. And that's kind of how I felt about this one. Didn't stick with me, obviously. I am going to have to start some kind of like book journal thing again because this obviously is not working for me. This just like reading and not doing that. So hopefully this will be the last video where I don't know what happened in a book that I just read. But I don't know what is up with that. Like I don't remember this book at all, which is terrible because I literally only read it a couple weeks ago. Then I read Bet the Farm by Staci Hart. This one follows Olivia and Jake. This is another small town romance. This is what I mean by like, I think I just read too many of them back to back. And I think I read all 3 of these, like, that I can't remember in the same, like, 2-day span. And so that's probably why, is just I read them all and they're all mixing together in my head. So in this one, Olivia is sort of living in a big city, working, like, a regular job. And she inherits, I think it's her grandfather's dairy farm. And she comes back to sort of take over. But when she gets there, she finds out that this guy, Jake, has also inherited part of the farm. They both have 50-50. So she can't really do anything without his permission. He can't do anything without hers. And the 2 of them end up kind of having to work together. But she hates him for sort of like inheriting it. And he hates her because he doesn't think that she really is planning on staying. She only says she's coming for a couple weeks. So he kind of is just like, why is this girl trying to take the farm when she doesn't even want to live here kind of thing. And this one was okay. I gave this 3 stars. It was very much like exactly what you would expect. It was sort of like a been there, done that kind of thing for me. It wasn't anything, you know, super spectacular or anything. It was just an okay small town farm romance. Not super, super memorable, but an okay read nonetheless. Then I read Until You by Catherina Maura. This is a brother's best friend book. It follows Grayson and Aria. They both are kind of like computer hackers, but like not really, like they do it like legally or whatever. And she has just broken up with this like really awful boyfriend. When she breaks up with this boyfriend, Grayson is her brother's best friend, like I said, and he is in town visiting her brother. So he's around and he sort of offers her a job with him. And he's like, why don't you come move back to California with me? I'm going back like on this day, whatever. And you can come and you can live in my house for now until you know, get settled and find a place. Like I live in this huge house. It's not a big deal. And you can have a job at my company because he's like the CEO of this big tech company. And she ends up accepting his offer and moving in with him. And obviously things go from there. This one also has like one of those sort of aspects to it where they are like talking to each other online, but they don't know that it's the other one. And I thought that was really interesting. And I really loved how that played out in the end. I really liked this one. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was really good, and it is part of a series, so I'm excited to continue on with that. And lastly was Hawke by Jescie Hall. I did really like this one. This one follows Nicole and Hawke, obviously. And basically this one, I picked this one up because More to Mary kept hyping this up, saying it was giving her After vibes, and I sort of miss my After days. I don't think I could ever reread After, but I do like the like vibe of that book. So I was like, okay, if this has After vibes, it's more grown up, like maybe I'll love this. And so I picked it up. It definitely does have After vibes, like I will say that. It follows a girl, Nicole, like I said, who's dating this guy named Patrick, who's like this really like churchy kind of dude. Very much like one of those like ultra religious families that like puts like the perfect face on kind of thing and pretends like they're perfect and above everyone else because they're just so like Catholic and whatever. And so she's dating him and she thinks she's like happy. She's like, oh, this is what I wanted. Like I have the like perfect boyfriend kind of thing. But he's kind of a dick throughout the entire book. Not even like kind of, like he straight up is a dick the entire book. So you kind of hate him, but all of a sudden there's this guy, Hawke, that moves in with them and is suddenly a roommate. And like Patrick doesn't even tell her that he's moving in. It's just all of a sudden, bam, this guy is living in their house. And she's like, where is this guy from? Like, why is he in our house? Like, super weird kind of thing. And all she knows is that he just got out of prison, this guy that has moved in. And she's like, well, this is just really not great for me. And it sort of goes from there. They're obviously living together. Her boyfriend obviously sucks. So, like, you can imagine where things go from there. He's, like, the tattooed bad boy, you know, ex-prison kind of guy. Very, like, hardened vibes, definitely, with that. Like I said, with the After connection. There's definitely, like, the good girl, bad boy thing going on with them. I really like this one. I thought this was going to be a 5-star read. Up until like the 50% mark, I was 100% like it's going to be 5 stars. I ended up giving this 4 stars just because I found between the 50 and 80% mark, there was a little bit of a lull where I was getting a little bit bored. But I think if you read this in one sitting, that lull wouldn't be there and it would be really, really good. Like you'd probably give it 5 stars. I probably would have given it 5 stars if I read it in one sitting, but I just haven't been able to do that lately. But I did really enjoy this and like would still highly recommend it if you're looking for something similar to After that's a little bit older, a little bit better done, a little bit more believable, I guess, in that sense. This one was just really different than a lot of things that I've been reading lately, and I liked the vibe that it was giving me. It reminded me a lot of the books that I read very early on when I was reading, and I really love that. And so that is everything for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below, and I will see you next time.